So we talk about the economy. In one of the biggest opposition to government's quest for an IMF bailout, a coalition of local and international civil society organizations operating in the education sector in Ghana has written officially to the board of the International Monetary Fund demanding the removal of what they call brutal expenditure cuts in Ghana's basic education sector, arising from Ghana's bid to meet conditionalities for its extended credit facility application. Already, the school feeding program is suffering, with many caterers suspending cooking due to the low payments, and in many cases arrears dating back to several school terms. I will come to the CSOs petition shortly and speak to some of these concerned groups. But first, I want you to listen to my colleague Nana Yao Boachi interacting with some caterers in the central region on the issues surrounding the school feeding program.
So we've been to some two public schools in Accra, and what we have picked up is that all two schools, the caterers in all two schools have reported to work. In fact, and where we are right now, we may not be able to identify the school because the officials that we have been speaking with would want it to remain so for the fear of victimization, what they call victimization, since they have decided to defy the odds of the national directive. But they explained to me that the reason why they have decided to defy the odds is for the interest of the students. The indication we have is that they have reported to school and they are feeding the kids. As you can see, the school we are right now is serving the children banku with okra soup actually. And so that's what they are feeding the kids. In the other school we went, they would not allow us to take any form of interaction or visuals from what is happening, but the assurance they gave us is that the caterers are actually at work and feeding the children. We can interact with some of the children to know what they feel, whether they actually know the caterers are not supposed to be at work at all, and they are what they feel about this whole dish that they have been.
Please, yes.
You have heard that they are supposed to be on strike.
Yes.
But are they on strike?
No.
Why?
Please, because the food that the caterers are cooking for us is not good at all. They don't bring for us yam and cotton breast, no meat, no anything, no egg. And the bonku too, sometimes the soup is water. They are not cooking it well. The beans and the rest of the food too are not good at all. They should cook for us yam and cotton breast stew.
The beans, they like bringing beans, and the beans too is like water. There's no oil on top, there's no plantain, and the rice too, the stew is too like water. There is no some kinds of things in the stew, so I like it to be comfortable so that I can eat it, and I don't eat it always because of how they cook it.
So today, what were you given?
I did not eat the food.
Why?
Because I've eaten, I've buy food, and I've eaten. And because of how they do the food, I can't eat it.
But you know what they were supposed to eat today?
Yes.
What were they supposed to eat?
Today they ate banku. They don't bring jollof always. It's once a while. And the banku too, the soup is once a while that is thick. Always is too like water.
So what do they put on it? Is it fish or meat?
Nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So today's own too had nothing on it?
Yeah.
It will affect me by not eating because my mom doesn't give me enough money to come to school. So by all means I have to eat the caterer's food. So it will really affect me.
So if you don't, your mom doesn't give you money, would that mean that you will not come to school at all, or you come and go hungry?
I'll come. But you know, some of my friends, if I ask them, they give me, so I can come and go.
So you just heard the bellboy ringing for break over as the students are entreated to go back to their classroom after being served with the school feeding food. So that's the situation here in some of the schools that we have been visiting around Accra on today, as the caterers, school feeding caterers nationwide, have declared a strike beginning today, Thursday, the 27th of April 2023, until their demands from government are met. For Joy News, my name is James Kwesi Aveji.
And James there, earlier I was saying Nana Wachi, but obviously it's James doing the rounds for us here in the Greater Accra Regional Capital. But the situation cuts across. In fact, checks from the Ashanti region proves that the situation is even dire, with some of the caterers refusing to cook owing to arrears. And the CSOs are beginning to get alarmed about this, writing to the International Monetary Fund over some critical government expenditure cuts. We'll speak to the CSO shortly, but check out what's happening in the Ashanti region.
I think it's 1 out of thousands, because looking at Ashanti region, we are 600 or more. And if you see one person or two people cooking, it means that it's 1 out of 1,000. And I also believe that those people, they have advantage over the poor women, because they know how to get their money, and that is why they are comfortable doing it. Otherwise, I don't see why they should cook.
Have you been able to confront these women, and what was their reaction? What did they tell you?
Yes, personally, I asked one woman, and she told me she can't wait to... She's having some stuff there, like she has some beans and then some rice over there, and she wouldn't want to throw them away just because we are on strike, so she would rather cook for the children, and that is why she's cooking. Oh no, a lot of them, majority, about 98%, they are poor. Those who can be on their feet and cook, they are about 2% out of the 1,000, and so we believe that there is something going on. Otherwise, I don't see why you will cook at this time. You don't know how much they are going to pay you. If you cook this time, it means that we are going back to the third term, the 3 terms. Because we have last year third term 1, we've cooked the first term, and now this is the second term, making the 3 terms. So are we now going by 3 terms before one term is paid? No. And I don't think those women really understand what is going on, so we can't force them. Oh, but you went around, you say you saw 2 people, and so if you have a whole Ashanti region and only 2 people are cooking, then it's not significant. It's not significant at all, and we thank God that. But we are pleading with our leaders that they should give these poor women a listening ear, because they are bitter, they are in pain. I know that teachers go on strike and they give them a listening ear. Why are they refusing to give these poor women a listening ear? I believe elections are coming, and they will still need these poor women to go down there and do those donkey work. And I'm afraid.
So for the 4 weeks that you've withdrawn your services, you've not been invited to any quarters to listen to what you have?
Nobody. Only threatening. If you don't cook, we'll take the school. If you don't cook, we will deduct it. And these are kind of words that we hear from them. But what pains me most is that those who are doing that, they are old people. They've enjoyed their life, and now they want to provoke the younger one and then go away. And I don't think they love even MPP. If they want MPP to be in power again, they will never treat these poor women this way, because they are going to also treat them bad coming this election. They say it, and that is why some of us are voicing out for them to hear.
Okay, let's speak now to Leveline Konedu Asiedu, who's the National Coordinator for the Ghana CSOs platform on SDGs. Bernice Imperi-Jechi is National Coordinator for the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition. Thank you both for your time here on The Pulse. Let me start off with you, Bernice. You've seen the very rather sad state of school feeding here in our country, and I understand that you've been engaging government on this over the years, making a passionate appeal for reforms in how we approach this policy program. What more do you have to say about what's happening now? Okay, I will get to Benis shortly, but Leveling, if you're with us, the petition has been sent to the IMF, but I'm wondering what you're seeking to achieve with this, knowing that the government of Ghana wrote its intent on how it intends to run the austerity plan with the International Monetary Fund. So it's our own doing, isn't it?
No, it is not our own doing. Good afternoon to you and your cherished listeners. This is the Ghana CSOs platform on sustainable development goals. And in our agenda with the IMF, we are seeking that the austerity measures, government is putting some medium-term plan in place between 2023 and 2025, and it is going to severely affect education. And from your reportage, we have realized that it is not rosy on the ground. And if we are to entertain budget cuts at the GDP and then the national budget, it means that we are severely going to undermine the quality of education, even the security of the children we are seeking to protect. And for whose interest are we seeking to do this? Because if we are going to, Ghana is going to the IMF to seek funding to ensure development or sustainable development, and then our future, the young ones that we are supposed to protect, are going to be exposed to the austerity measures through no fault of theirs, then it means that we are not going to do a good job. And civil society, this is what we seek to achieve, to let IMF look at the conditionality and then
Leveling? We're having some connection challenges.
The international policies.
Leveling, we lost you briefly on the point you're building about why there's a need for you to go to the IMF now.
Okay, sorry. I am saying that your reportage from the field shows that the ground is not rosy. The school children are not being fed properly. And it goes beyond just feeding. It also requires supply of books, that is goods and services. The capitation grant is in arrears. And if we are supposed to go through another set of austerity measures before we implement our program as a nation, then it means that we are going to put the children further at a disadvantage. And who are we protecting as a country? We have to ensure the security of the school-going children. We have to ensure that our education is well protected and it is of quality. So if we are going to do this and disadvantage another 25% of people who are already in dire need of quality education because they lack books for 4 years, we haven't had any books from government based on the new program, then it means that we are throwing our children to the wind, and we are saying that whatever can happen to them. That is why we are calling on the IMF through this press release.
Are you supported by the data now? And I'm asking that question because ever since the inception of the free senior high school, there seems to be some sharp focus and attention towards the second cycle institutions as compared to the basic or what you may call the pre-tertiary level. Is that not an indication that over the years, government intentionally has skewed its policy measure towards the free senior high school policy more, and it's not simply because we're going in for an austerity plan with the IMF?
Yes, this is what it has been, especially in the past 6 years. And we have been fighting at the ground to say that concentrating all government's efforts at the tertiary level, secondary level, is training and putting the basic level under further pressure. So this particular call, we are looking at basic school education. As for the free SHS policy, it is a policy that even Ghanaians don't want anything to happen to it. And I'm not too sure that government has intentions of scrapping it. So if we don't make noise, if we don't take pragmatic steps to sort of tie government's hands, it will continue to siphon the little funds that the basic school is getting, and it will affect the quality of education. And the future of Ghana isn't.
But I guess that's the import of my question. The data and what it tells us about government's approach towards expenditure at the basic level. The priority seems to be elsewhere. So why not ask government to, of course, try and make room for basic education in these allocations instead of asking a much bigger body, the IMF, to come through when our government could easily solve the problem?
Yes, it is. If government could easily solve the problem, we wouldn't be here speaking with the IMF. And we have gone to the IMF because they are setting out, they are asking Ghana as part of the program to come up with its own conditions. And if IMF goes ahead, and already it has indicated that our social interventions are not going to be affected by this program. And so if we have seen that government is going to cut our national budgets and then GDP for that matter, as far as basic schools is concerned, it means that we have a reason to go to the higher authority. We did that with the COVID grant. And that was what compelled government to come up to make a statement about the situation of the COVID financing in Ghana. And so when we do this and the IMF is able to pick it up, we believe that our conditions that we are looking for will be met. And let me also add that Ghana's president, for a percentage of our national budget to be committed to education. And for that matter, our GDP, that is 15% of national budget. And if our African advocate or the ambassador, who is the president of Ghana, is cutting his own budget in his backyard, then it means that we are not setting any pace for the other countries to follow. So we have a call to go to a higher authority and make our demands known there.
Prior to your decision to appeal to the International Monetary Fund, did you engage government to at least know what their position was on this matter?
Cabinet, the Parliamentary Select Committee on Education has been engaged. We have engaged our development partners. We have engaged a host of stakeholders. So this is the highest that we want to escalate this issue, looking at the dire consequences that it has on the Ghanaian child.
Levelin, just stay on with us. Bernice Imperija is National Coordinator for the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition. She's also joining the conversation now. And Bernice, I was just hearing from Levelin on how you, the CSOs, have made countless appeals to the Ministry of Education. You've engaged stakeholders, and yet the situation is not improving. Should we look at a point where, of course, we try and get other stakeholders, PTA, the PTA Council and others to join in to at least find a solution to this crisis that we're seeing?
All right, thank you so much, Blessed, and all viewers watching us this afternoon. I think you've been part of our programming and petition in engaging the Ministry, Ghana Education Service, to make the basic education better one than we see now. So other engagements have been made. We haven't seen any progress in the area of basic schools. That is why we feel that other stakeholders should come on board. You know, the PTA was actually supporting our educational system to some extent, but there is an attempt to separate the teachers from the parents. That it should be parent association. The definition is even not so clear at the moment. So the community involvement in management of the basic school is becoming a challenge now. So we can equally go back to the PTA to see how they can contribute at their own level in making the basic school a better one, because we have declared everything free for the basic schools, yet the resources that is needed is not being provided. So this is where the PTA can come in. If we are able to explain to them some of the supports they can give to their basic school, I think we can see a better processes in the basic school that we are seeing now. Because as it is now, every aspect of the basic school is not working. The infrastructure is very poor. We did an independent audit on school infrastructure. We shared with the ministry. We gave them the gaps and what can be done. They adopted to some extent. And then looking at teaching and learning materials, how can we develop a curriculum for 3 years and we don't have textbooks to support it? It is not too good. The capitation grant is in arrears. Even what we have is not adequate. School feeding program is not working. Teachers are currently on strike. So what are we doing to our foundational learning in this country? So there is a need to do further engagement with stakeholders to ensure that the basic school gets to a better stage than we are seeing.
And the point you're raising about the status of the PTA in our education system now, are you arguing that, for instance, given the current regime we have now, there's no clear policy direction or position on what role they play in our schools? Is that the case?
Yes, it is not very clear now, because I think there was a view that the teachers were trying to get parents to pay certain amount of money that they are not supposed to pay. So parents should have their own meeting, teachers should not be involved. But now I think the PTA were contributing some resources to the schools. They could come together to give some resources to the school. So they should come out clearly with a policy on how the school should engage the teachers and even the community as well in supporting our basic schools.
But then going forward, looking at this, for instance, this appeal to the IMF, is that the only solution to the problem we have now? Or there's a need to engage some more stakeholders?
We wish that it could be one of the solutions, because the IMF have asked us to come out with our own conditions, and they've told us that our social protection issues are not going to be affected. So if we should come out with our own conditions, so these are the conditions we are petitioning to the IMF that it should be looked at in terms of our education, so that it will be part of the conditions, and once it comes out, it should be implemented.
The independent assessment you carried out, pointing out to some low level of infrastructure and other concerns that you pointed out, how is this impacting on the, first of all, the quality of products we're churning out from the pre-tertiary level, and by extension, the entire education sector?
All right. We are happy to say that when we presented the report to the Ministry of Education, there has been some attempt to find solution to the infrastructure. The government has gone ahead to develop a national school infrastructure policy for the basic school, which is fantastic. But our challenge and our fear is that we have so many of these policies lying down, but its implementation is really a challenge. If you see the policy that has come out on the school infrastructure, it is good. Looking at how the environment should be, being it friendly for all children with disability, it is very nice and beautiful. But then how are we going to implement it? That is the challenge. We have so much poor educational policies.
Hello, Benis. We'll get back to Benis shortly. Leveling, if you're with us, the way forward now. Okay, I understand Benis is back, and then Leveling, just hold on for us a bit more. Benis, you were finishing up the point about what needs to be done. We lost you briefly. Leveling, let's talk about the way forward. In the meantime, Leveling, what's your expectation? What do you expect from government? At least they now know about the petition that you sent to the International Monetary Fund. In the meantime, are you expecting them to react, respond, or perhaps adopt a new posture towards your concerns?
Okay, thank you. So we are expecting government to relook at his conditions that he's submitting to the IMF, and then on its own accord, align it to the policies, guidelines, and then the set targets that we are we want to achieve for education, especially at the basic level. So we would want to have some assurances, and beyond the assurances, we want to see implementation in place that what we are calling for is going to be granted. We don't want to have the gentleman roundtable discussions anymore. We want to see action, and we want to see that our education sector is really at the place that it has to be in this time of difficulties. Otherwise, it means that we are fighting a lost battle, which civil society is not prepared to let go.
And as a coalition, how long will you hold on to this fight, and to what extent will you go to seek some answers?
So we have plans in place. We are mobilizing different coalitions to come out to have a stronger voice, because once we keep talking about this issue, and then at this point, I would really ask that the media rallies behind us. We have the facts, we have the figures, we know the implications of poor education, and we know the implications of these austerity measures going to have on our basic school education. And so we are going to make the noise. We are going to engage those are the helms of affairs. And as we have gone to the IMF, it means that if there is any other higher authority to go, we will still go. And we are not going to rest until we have seen that our request is being granted and our children are not going to be affected.
Grateful for your time, Lovely Nasiedu, for joining us. We'll wait to see what the outcome will be. Benis, are you still with us? Your final thoughts on this? Benis, if you're with us, your final thoughts on this?
Yes, so for what we are saying is that we are not very happy with the way we are handling our foundational learning in Ghana. We are not happy at all in all aspects. So with the issues that we have outlined, this one we will add that it's a plea, and we are begging that all stakeholders who want to see our foundational learning strong, to see our basic school to be one of the best, should come on board so that we get some of the issues that we are outlining addressed. That is what we'll talk about. Thank you.
Grateful. Benis Mperi-Jechi joining us. She's the National Coordinator for the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition. Of course, there's a need for us to break down what's going on. And for those of you who do not have, of course, details of what it is that has been sent to the IMF, here are excerpts for you and the concerns being raised by civil society organizations. It's a letter actually addressed to the executive directors for the International Monetary Fund, of course, coming through from civil society organizations, petitioning the board over cuts in Ghana's basic education 2023 budget allocation. And it talks about the fact that the International Monetary Fund on the 12th of December 2022 reached a staff-level agreement with the government of Ghana, of course, on issues relating to the economic policies and reforms to be supported by a new 3-year agreement under the extended credit facility of about some $3 billion. Ghana has since been working to meet the conditions precedent to a board level approval. Prior to the staff level management, civil society representatives in Ghana held some meetings with, for instance, the IMF team in Accra, during which the IMF assured participants of its commitment to, first of all, protect social protection and related budgets from expenditure cuts as part of the expenditure rationalization conditionalities. And specific areas of these assurances were in areas of basic education, the school feeding program in most of our primary, in fact, all of our primary schools across the country, and cash grants to the vulnerable and the poor in society. However, it appears that through the medium-term expenditure framework presented to the IMF by the government of Ghana, including the expenditure allocations in the budget statement for 2023, the inception budget for the IMF program indicates that here are the cuts. First of all, there's going to be a 12% cut on the national budget allocation to the education sector for 2023. There's also going to be an 11% projected expenditure allocation to education in 2024 and 2025. 3% also taking place for GDP allocation to education in 2023. Then there's also the 2% GDP allocation to education in 2024 and 2025 respectively. There's also this leg of 25% decline in the projected expenditure allocation for basic school feeding program by 2025 or in 2025. So the allocations above are in sharp contrast with that minimum financing benchmarks established by the Global Partnership for Education. That's the need to have 15% of national budget and 4% of GDP allocated to education, which the majority of IMF board member countries agree to and support and have pledged to actually champion. So given this case, the case of Ghana, the President's Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo was also selected as the Global Partnership for Education Financing Ambassador, responsible for encouraging other countries in Africa, for instance, to commit to at least 15% of their national budgets and 4% of GDP to education. And bearing this in mind and the effective and efficient financing, which is crucial for the attainment of the Education Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 4 in Sub-Saharan Africa, the 2023 education budget cuts have not only reduced education's share of the national budget and GDP, but CSOs are arguing that this will severely affect a lot of sectors by over 40% of the allocation of resources and some other sectors which they are concerned about. So these are some of the concerns being raised by the civil society organizations, which you heard from Benis Imperi-Jechi and also Leveling joining us to have a discussion on this. You're watching The Pulse here on the Joy News channel. When we get back, we'll get into politics. Dr. Kwabena Dufo says he's the best man to replace John Mahama as the flag bearer of the opposition party. But why give him a chance? We'll find out why.